Welcome to Nobody Puts Wellbeing in a Corner with me, James Shillaker from Incorpore Limited. Obviously, the title of this presentation is a little play on words on the line from the great Dirty Dancing film where Patrick Swayze picks up Jennifer Grey off the table after she's been banned from performing in the show. And he says, nobody puts baby in a corner. And in a way, I feel that's symbolic because I often find that well-being benefits are hidden away in the corner of the employee benefit package for employees. So my first job today is just to kind of set the scene. I'd like to disambiguate well-being as a phrase, because for me, it only really applies when we talk about health. And whether it's the World Health Organization or the NHS, they both look at well-being from a mental, physical, and social perspective. And that's because those three are intrinsically linked. In fact, most people who suffer a physical health condition will develop some form of mental health condition as well, especially those suffering from cancers or heart disease. And likewise, somebody with a mental health issue is much more likely to develop a chronic physical condition. And in fact, where social deprivation is involved, all types of well-being and health are worsened, and in particular at this time with coronavirus and COVID. So what I'm not doing is mentioning financial well-being at all in this presentation, but I am going to look now at some of the costs associated with working from home on both physical and mental health. A third of workers have gained weight, and that average weight gain is 3 kilograms, which is about a stone. And you might be thinking, well, it's only a stone. But the truth is, it's another stone, because we're already in the middle of an obesity crisis in the UK, and this is just one more stone. And as Tim Spector at King's College said, this is really just going to generate more heart disease, more diabetes, more illnesses throughout, more cancers, and we're just going to spend more money on both the social and clinical care of more people. And the result of this obesity increase, if you like, is because whether an employee was sedentary, as in they had a sedentary job, or they perhaps had an active job and they moved around a lot, by the time they went to working from home, they just became even more sedentary. And of course, with the gyms being shut for a good proportion at that time, and for some people, they just couldn't get out and exercise, they also became inactive, which is kind of a double whammy, if you like. And the main reasons for this weight gain were increased alcohol consumption, a less healthy diet, lack of physical exercise, and the big one was snacking, or as my friend likes to say, it's just a snacksident. But they're the reasons that we've created that. And when we look at physical exercise, working from home versus working in your usual facility, then the step count on a daily basis has gone down from 10,500 steps to just 1,300 steps for somebody working from home. A quick look at the mental health cost of working from home, and you can see in that top sentence, if you can read it, that there's been a significant decline in mental health across every industry, every level of employee within the business, and every demographic and geographic location. It has impaired our job satisfaction, our job motivation, and most importantly, the job and the company satisfaction, the way that employees perceive their company. Over half of employees are either discouraged or dislike working from home, with 8 out of 10 employees saying it negatively impacted their mental health. Now, these are hugely shocking statistics. It's kind of put an awful lot of doubt into that working from home revolution that people were talking about. And agonizingly, 1 in 4 of us suffered loneliness during the working from home period. And almost certainly that's because they've started to miss their employees. So what have the NHS done? What have they done to help us and to stay well during the time of working from home? Well, ideally for me, there's that message about getting more exercise. And in fact, exercising more appears in nearly every single piece of advice on well-being, every single study on well-being, and every single article about improving well-being. Exercise is mentioned. For the first time ever, I've seen an NHS fact sheet or an NHS advice sheet that talks about potentially taking some milligrams of vitamin D each day. The function of vitamin D in the body is to improve the immune system. So it kind of makes sense during coronavirus that they would encourage people to do that. And then the two more obvious ones, to try and quit smoking and having a balanced diet. So now we move on to the social well-being side of it. Now, obviously, as the World Health Organization and the NHS include social well-being, it's important that we understand what they meant by that. And I think the World Health Organization meant whether or not you lived in a society that was free from war, free from famine, that you had access to running water, that you weren't part of any foreign or domestic tyranny, whether you had access to electricity and for things like that. And I think from a UK point of view, we are talking about social deprivation from a housing point of view. But for this presentation, I'm trying to focus more on what home life would be like. In 2018, nearly half of the working from home population described the environment as highly stressful. And that was before we had the added pressure of COVID. 7 out of 10 employees suffer burnout. Burnout because they are doing 3 hours extra a day and they are struggling with the home and the work life. And a third of us have put a strain on our relationships with our partners and our children. Must have been really hard during the summer holidays too. What's the NHS advice on well-being, social well-being? Yeah, absolutely none. There's virtually nothing out there. And I don't even think it's something we can address through employee benefits. I think it's for a role in the greater HR role, if you like. And so I'm not going to address it anymore in this presentation. So when we look at trying to improve well-being, let's look at some of the psychologies being used today. And I'd just like to thank my girlfriend for making herself available to do the photo shoot for this slide, although don't tell the wife. But it does accurately depict a lot of marketing around well-being and in particular fitness. And we've heard those messages so many times. Get thin to win, beach body confidence, new year, new you. And the problem with that is if I genuinely thought they worked, the gyms would be full, wouldn't they? So actually, I think there's a problem with all that marketing messages. There's actually a psychologist called Alan Watts, who's from Scotland, who talks about the backwards law. And what he means by that is that sometimes when you're getting motivational messages that are positive and they're supposed to inspire you, they can actually have the completely reverse effect. And the backwards law looks at things like, the more I desire to be rich, the poorer I feel. So every time I see marketing based on becoming rich, I don't buy in. The prettier I want to look, the uglier I feel. And therefore, I don't buy into messages surrounding beauty. So the same principle can be applied to becoming thin. The more I see marketing about losing weight, the heavier I feel, and I don't buy in. If people want messages about looking better, feeling better, then the more stressed it reminds me I am, and I don't buy in. And coupled with some pretty horrendous imagery, that's why perhaps it doesn't work. So there's a new approach moving forward, the end of this year and moving into next year. And that is that we're going to try and focus on the benefits and not the outcome. So the message from the NHS and from government is to do a minimum of 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise. And you're going to see those numbers coming through a lot. It can even be a combination of the two. But by doing that, you then start to create benefits for your life. Sleep, getting more sleep, getting a better sleep pattern, increasing your energy levels. Even when people talk about doing 75 minutes of vigorous exercise every week, you can actually get rid of the aches and pains by strengthening your bones and joints. It can improve your confidence, your morale, get rid of some of the tension and stress you have, and improve those social circles, which, as we saw earlier, 25% of people are suffering from loneliness. So you're going to see a lot more of that type of marketing coming into the well-being and fitness industry. And also, there's going to be a lot more information about the gym being the best place for an all-body workout. Not simply because you can do so many different activities. You can do your cardio, you can do your classes, you can play football, you can swim, you can play tennis, but also there's so much available to you. Nutritional advice, you can get a plan, you can have a fitness trainer, you can get psychological support. There's a whole array of things to do. So I think you're going to see a lot more marketing around encouraging people to take that very hard step and move into the gym where you're going to find the best advice and facilities. So with that, I think you're also going to see a lot more clinical messages following on from sort of the government's three-step process and reminding you of the clinical data that's available. And I think messages like 360-degree well-being have little or no value now when communicating to employees, because effectively it's just management jargon. It's never been used in a clinical environment. No doctor talks about 360-degree when you go and see them. They all talk about the multidisciplinary between physical and mental health and that ultimate link. And they'll talk to you about how one may affect the other, but they're never going to use that term 360-degree, because other than being sort of a nonsense expression, it also could be misleading, because it suggests that a 360-degree solution solves everything, or it suggests that 360 degrees, perhaps if I take part in a 360-degree well-being program, every single thing is covered and I don't need to worry about anything else. And that's just not necessarily true. So I think you're going to see some more clinical messages coming through. And in relation to that, I'm just going to show you some of those clinical messages that are coming out at the moment. The Department of Health have reissued that statement that the silent killer of our generation is inactivity. And to the point that inactive people have been highlighted by the NHS as the most at risk of developing serious symptoms of COVID. That's obviously after we've taken into consideration those extremely vulnerable people based on age or health. Obesity is one of the greatest European public health challenges of the 21st century, according to the World Health Organization. And just to boot, yep, the UK has the highest obesity rate in Western Europe. So those are terrible messages coming through about our general health. And in addition, very sadly, 1 in 5 adults have considered taking their own life. So if there's 100 people sitting here today listening to this presentation, the truth is 20 of them have considered taking their own life. And that is a very, very sad state of affairs. So what I'm asking is, are those messages and are those serious issues truly being addressed in your employee benefit packages that you're offering staff? So when I say don't put well-being in a corner, what I mean is that when we saw the start of coronavirus and when we saw the sort of lockdown and now we're all going back to work, there are messages everywhere about washing your hands, about staying 2 meters apart, about sanitizing your hands, about keeping your social distancing. But before that, did we ever see loads and loads of messages about doing 75 minutes of exercise could improve your sleep? Did we see messages about, you know, doing a certain amount of workouts would help your muscles and your joints? We didn't see any of that. In fact, I actually think most times when we talked about either fitness or well-being, it was so well hidden that people couldn't find that information. And retail discounts, as much as I love retail discounts, what retail discounts are we offering? And are we offering retail discounts in the right way? Are we saying money and that will improve your financial well-being? And is that the same message that we want to be saying when we then talk about health assessments or a gym membership or anything else? Do that and improve your well-being, because that does seem to water down the message of well-being. Also exercise, as I said to you earlier, it comes up time and time and time again. In every single article I've ever seen about improving well-being, exercise is the #1 thing. So is that being reflected in your employee benefit packages? And finally, similar to the above, financial has such an important role in our employee benefits. But are we confusing the message if we continue to talk about it as a well-being solution? Because financial advice, financial management, financial stability, all these things that those great products do, but does it really improve our well-being? And is that a fair assessment of well-being when we're talking about physical, mental, and social well-being? So I hope I haven't given you too many silly, dirty dancing puns or jokes, but I hope you've all sat there with your hungry eyes and that you've had the time of your life. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, James, for a really interesting presentation, looking at some of the impacts of working from home and the serious health fallout that we're already seeing as a result of the pandemic. So we've got a few minutes left for questions. I just wanted to go to the poll where we asked, what do you think the top employee health issue of 2021 will be? And looking at the results, we've got mental health disorders at 73%, coronavirus at 8%, increasing exercise levels at 4%, and backlog of physical health conditions 15%. Just wondered if that was really what you expected. I'm assuming so, but what your thoughts are on that and how you see it panning out in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd been a gambling man, I would have put my money on mental health to have been the highest answer there. The data doesn't lie. We're seeing at the far end of the scale, in the worst possible scenario, we're still seeing huge increases in the number of suicides among the population, especially the working population. I think females under the age of 25 in the last 5 years has gone up 94%. And I think overall we're still looking at a rise between 10 and 20% year on year. And it just shows that the pressures we are suffering from today and probably the poor understanding of mental health issues going back in the previous decades is what's responsible for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And looking at some other questions we're coming in. So do you think that people are still afraid to go back to the gym? Is this something that's going to obviously become a big issue now as we move into the winter months and the concerns that people are starting to have again now?
Yes and no. I think people who didn't use the gym very often but were still a member are probably still staying away. The data from, obviously that's what we do is gym memberships, but the data for us is there is an awfully large amount of new members going into the gym, people who have never been a member of the gym, who I think have decided that the physical health issue related to coronavirus, that they've got to do something about that. And I think those that genuinely use the gym regularly are still back using it. So if you weren't using the gym and you had a sort of token member, then I think, yeah, you're not either not going back or you've cancelled your membership. But anybody who's general fitness goer, I think is still attending.
Okay. I've got lots of people saying how much they've enjoyed your dirty dancing quotes today. So many of us of a certain age do love that movie.
Did any of them have the time of their life? Did anyone have the time of their life?
Excellent. So I've got another question here. Do you think the coronavirus has taken the attention away from the obesity issue?
100% yes. Coronavirus is the second pandemic. It's as simple as that. Obesity pandemic in the UK is killing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people every year, and it's almost as if it's the hidden truth and the fact that we just let it happen. You know, the statistics in the presentation talking about the UK having the highest rate of obesity in Western Europe is just incredible. And I think once coronavirus is gone, I think you're going to see more and more effort being put into tackling that obesity crisis.
Mm-hmm. And for you, what would you say is kind of one of the biggest changes in behaviour that you've seen over the last 6 months that perhaps you hadn't expected?
I think the greatest benefit of lockdown was the weather, because that gave people the chance to do that hour's walk that the government talked about. And I think for a lot of people that has continued. I live in rural Sussex, and you can just see the volume of people out walking, people in the parks, people jogging, people cycling. I think exercise has definitely been put back on the agenda because of lockdown. And now I think the symptoms of coronavirus has just encouraged people to be more active. So that's the biggest change I've seen. Parks have got more people in it. There are more outdoor fitness classes, lots of people walking where they would perhaps normally drive. That's what I'd say is the biggest impact I've seen.
Brilliant. And let's just hope that some of that continues with this lovely Indian summer that we're having. So time's up, I'm afraid, but I just want to thank James for a great presentation and lots of food for thought there. Just so that you all know, the live vendor presentations are about to start. Please go to your My Itinerary and enter the sessions through there. Don't be shy, do drop into the video rooms. Take this opportunity to find out more about what's going on in your marketplace. And remember to use Google Chrome in order to enter the video rooms. Thank you. Thanks, James.